So, if you watched the episode I posted last week on the Marvels, then you know that Shazam! Fury of the Gods was the only movie I'd seen Rachel Zegler in. I know now that that movie is not a good example of her acting. What I'm saying is, I was less than impressed with her acting, then came the live action Snow White interviews and girl was saying too much. I knew what I knew from TikToks that showed up on my FYP, and honestly from what I'd seen, it just left a bad taste in my mouth. I knew I wanted to watch this movie because I really like the world of Panem, so to revisit it was something I was eager to do, but I was 100% expecting the movie to be soured by her just being there. I am so glad that I was wrong. Hi friends, welcome back, or just welcome if you're new here. I'm here as a friend to give you my spoiler-free thoughts on the latest movie I've watched in theaters or cozied up at home. I will say that if you haven't seen the original Hunger Games films, then there's probably going to be some spoilers in here for those movies. If you're looking for my thoughts on a specific movie, DM me on Instagram, let me know in the comment section on YouTube, or let me know on the podcast. Tune in for new episodes every Friday, and don't forget to follow the podcast, subscribe on YouTube, follow me on Instagram, all the things everywhere, so you don't miss out on what I'm watching and what we're going to be talking about. I have to say right now that I have not read the book the movie is based on, but the way I am trying not to run to Target or like the nearest bookstore right now to get the box set, because tell me why Amazon rose the price by over $20. I digress. Let's get into today's episode on the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Set 64 years before beloved heroine Katniss Everdeen entered the arena, the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes follows a young Coriolanus Snow who remains the last hope for his fading lineage. With the 10th annual Hunger Games fast approaching, the young Snow becomes alarmed when he's assigned to mentor Lucy Greybeard from District 12. Uniting their instincts for showmanship and political savvy, they race against time to ultimately reveal who's a songbird and who's a snake. So, in the episode I posted last week, I was talking about how one of my favorite character types is the funny character who is the heart. I stand by that, but I love a villain too. In my opinion, what's better is being able to see up close and personal their descent or their rise, however it's being told and however we perceive it. It's incredibly engaging to be able to see the small cracks so early on, like from the beginning, and to see the subtleties, especially in the performance of the actor, of how the character progresses. There are more deliberate moments, but I love the showing rather than saying, and those little details of a performance when I can pick them up anyway. One of my favorite movies of all time is actually a romance movie, so of course I really enjoy a love story. But is that what this is? That is what I like about this movie. There is so much room for interpretation that even goes beyond just that romance element. It's a love story when it is, all the while being something darker. I think I'm starting to rant, so let's talk about the singing real quick and then we'll get into the acting. I linked an article in the description and it talks about how Rachel Zegler sang live on set during filming. From what I've seen on TikTok of people talking about this, it's not done very often, and I can see why it wouldn't be done very often. It makes sense that they don't, but after seeing what singing live on set looks like translated on screen, they should do it as often as possible. Rachel Zegler's singing is nothing short of incredible. The way she sounds aside, there's a power there that is moving, and it absolutely elevates the story, the larger story, and the context of what's happening around the moment. Finally, let's talk about the acting, and I have to say that the acting from the cast is amazing across the board. Because the cast is so talented, it really gives us the chance to read into the characters' thoughts and intentions. I'm gonna try to keep this short to just a handful of actors, but I'm probably gonna rant, so buckle in. Tom Blythe as Coriolanus Snow. Amazing. This movie has a lot of talking, and I think it could be easy to miss the expressions, reactions, again, the subtleties just beneath the surface, but Blythe makes Coriolanus's thoughts and intentions clear in a way that was honestly really surprising, in a way that I think if you're really looking into it, or maybe it's just easy to spot, but in a way that I think you can pick up on without having read the book. Tom Blythe gave us so much of this character, and what I was really interested in was the range and the character development. Snow is such an interesting character to watch and an interesting character to navigate. Having not read the books, but having seen the previous films, we knew where he was going to end up, but seeing how he got there and the people he was surrounded by and the people that surrounded him. I told you guys, I need to read these books. There's so much here and so much that I want to know. I'm ranting again. Let's talk about Viola Davis. Viola Davis is fantastic in everything she does, and to see her as Dr. Volumnia Gaul was such a treat. I really love to see this side of her acting, to see this type of character from her. The prosthetics were great, and she easily acted through the makeup and gave such a vile character to put next to Snow. Their dynamic was interesting, and her role in the movie and his story was so apparent. Another icon, Peter Dinklage, played Casca Highbottom. All these characters are so interesting for what they believe in and their role in the story, but I really enjoyed Dinklage here because he nailed the authoritative moments he had to the more darker and sullen moments. Who else? I'm telling you guys, this entire cast is so good. Let's talk about Hunter Schafer as Tigress Snow. I've seen her in Euphoria, so I know she can act, but something I really loved here was what she added to Tigress's character. I love seeing the relationship between her and Coriolanus. I love to see how much of a warmth and how much of a kind of glow she brought to the scenes she was in. Going back to that relationship between Tigress and Coriolanus, I love how she's trying to maintain his kind of humanity, and you can see that throughout the film, and she's such an endearing character, and Hunter really brings all of that out. I can go on and on, but really, how long have we been here talking about the acting at this point? Let's finish this section off with Miss Rachel Zegler. She is incredible as Lucy Greybeard. I'm going to talk about the on-set singing again because I am absolutely blown away that it happened. But not only that, but you can tell, you can feel the difference between what she did in this movie and the next movie where they pre-recorded the vocals in a booth and have the actors lip sync over, which is totally fine. Do not get me wrong. That favorite movie of mine that I was talking about earlier that is a romance, it's also a musical, so I don't mean anything bad by it. No tea, no shade. Not only is her singing performance unreal, but her acting is too. I love everything about Lucy Gray. She's such an interesting character, and I wish we got more time with her and Zegler as the character. I don't want to go on a rant, but I love everything about her performance in this movie. Acting, outstanding. Her singing, powerful. Lucy Greybeard is an incredibly charming character, and Zegler brings her to life in a spectacular way. Now I know we talked about the acting for a while there, but you can't say I didn't warn you. But now that we're done, what did I think about the movie? Is it worth watching? Let me just put it all out there. Like I said earlier in the episode, I've never read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, so my thoughts and opinions are just based off watching the movie. I know this episode's late, so if you haven't seen the movie already, I would definitely watch this one when you have time if you're interested. Not everything is for everyone, so this one might not be for you. The movie does come in at a long 2 hours and 38 minutes, but if you've been here before, then you know I low-key want long movies. Drop the director's cut. Give me the 4-hour movie, if there's a story for it. That said, my primary gripe with this movie is that I feel like it should have been split into 2 parts. Do I feel like both parts should be almost 3 hours? Absolutely not. But I feel like there was a lot of source material and a lot more story we could have gotten from this movie. Because of that, maybe a pacing issue too. Honestly, nothing jarring that really bothered me personally though. What I would really like to know is, if you've read the book, did the movie feel watered down? I haven't read a book and watched a movie that was based on it in a really long time. I think last year. I did it last year, and that was a really bad experience. So I am very, very curious. Let me know wherever you are listening. I know they can't fit everything in, but I wonder what kind of key details or moments they left out that could have just made the movie even better. I'm ranting a little bit, but trust me, we are segueing into the negative review section. So I read online that somebody didn't like the development of Coriolanus' character, and I think this is interesting. And I will say that I think he's easy to read in the beginning, and you can definitely see something just beneath the surface. I think if you miss the subtleties of the character and acting, his actions would be very sudden and unexpected though. If you can see it all happening, it really is intriguing to see how the story kind of unfolds around him. A ton of people didn't like the acting. Totally valid. A lot, and I mean a lot, of the negativity was for Zegler, and I would say if you don't like her, then definitely skip this one because she has a lot of screen time. Speaking of her, I saw a review that complained because she had so much screen time, saying that basically they forced it and should have focused on Tom Blythe. Like I talked about in the last episode, women playing a main character is going to make people mad. Not everything is for everyone, and getting mad or rating something poorly because women is super weird. I will say though that I was actually surprised at the amount of negative reviews that mentioned the singing in this movie. Not for being bad, but for being in the movie. Random singing, it was feeling like a musical, and so on. I personally didn't feel like that, to be honest. I would say maybe the scene where she was being reaped, but after a moment I was like, okay, this is fine. And everything else after that felt very organic to the character and to the story. To me anyway. One negative review that I can totally get behind is the fact that the Hunger Games and the arena play a minimal on-screen role. I recently rewatched the original Hunger Games, and those films definitely have way more arena time, but the way I perceived it was that this movie wasn't about that. Sure, when the credits started rolling, I will admit I was disappointed. I was looking forward to more action because I like action, and I like the arenas we've seen in the previous films. So I was looking forward to spending more time in this type of location. I do also want to say that I feel like the trailers had more action, made it seem like there was going to be more action in the movie too. I saw online somewhere in an interview that Zegler said that Lucy Gray is a performer forced to fight, and Katniss is a fighter forced to perform. What a read! Honestly, the movie is about her performance. It's about that romance, the development of Snow, and really how she comes to haunt him throughout his life. I think when I look at it like that, I'm not mad that the games didn't have that much screen time. Have you seen The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes yet? If you saw the movie, what did you think about it? I stand by what I said. This is a great movie. The acting is fantastic. The singing is phenomenal. Also, Lucy Gray's accent, it took a minute to grow on me, but it was endearing. I liked it. Again, the games don't play a big on-screen role like I was hoping they would, but the tonal shift from the previous films makes the whole franchise more interesting. I love what the games did for Lucy Gray's character and how the games really twisted Coriolanus' character. Something I love that I didn't mention yet, the costumes. I love the visual differences between the characters in terms of costumes and colors. I especially love Dr. Gall, Viola Davis's costumes. I love Lucy Gray's rainbow dress and how Coriolanus' red attire changed from beginning to end. I mentioned it way earlier, but I really love when elements of a story are left for audience interpretation, and this gives you a really intriguing opportunity to really decide for yourself what happened in the story. Like I said at the top of the video, from what I'd seen in clips of her interviews before this movie was released, I just had a bad taste in my mouth. And if you want to know what I'm talking about and what I think a lot of people are talking about in those negative reviews, just Google her Snow White interviews if you want to check that out. I just wasn't impressed. And remember, I'd only seen her in Shazam! Fury of the Gods. I felt like her acting wasn't great and she wasn't memorable. What I'm saying is, I was totally expecting to come out of the theater feeling the same way as the people that wrote those negative reviews. I thought she was gonna fall flat, and I thought I was going to be annoyed with seeing her on screen. So I was really surprised when scene after scene, I was just so impressed. I think she did an amazing job, but I can totally see where some people are coming from with their negative reviews. All right, movie fans, that brings us to the end of the episode. If you're listening on the podcast, thank you very much. Check out the description below for a link to the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, please consider leaving a thumbs up on today's episode. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and for catching today's episode. You can listen to new episodes every Friday, and make sure you subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify, follow me on Instagram, all the things everywhere, so you don't miss out on the next movie we're going to be talking about. I am not going to push myself here, so I'm going to drop Thanksgiving next week. I'm going to tell on myself a little bit. If you checked out the community tab on YouTube, then you know I plan to post that one today with this episode, but I'm going to push it out to next week. Also next week, I'm going to post the episode on Napoleon. I watched that one this past weekend, but honestly, I'm a little behind. I'm tired. I'm burnt out. I'm stressed out from all that Black Friday prepping, and then not to mention working on Black Friday. I also want to watch Silent Night. I don't have tickets for that one yet, but we'll see if I see it. If I do watch that one, I'll move some of these episodes around. I'll most likely have one or two be podcast exclusives. After that, I have tickets to see The Boy and the Heron. I'm really excited about that movie. Usually my honey and I watch these movies in Japanese, but this time we agreed that we had to check this one out in the English dub because of that cast. So, I've had this movie low on the priority list only because I keep falling behind, but we'll finally talk about Totally Killer this month, another podcast exclusive. Speaking of podcast exclusives, Rebel Moon. Have you guys seen the trailer, the posters, the cast, the director, the vision? It's gonna be so good. So come back at the end of the month on the podcast. Check it out on Spotify and online at Spotify for Podcasters. I have links everywhere. Join me because I feel like we somehow have a lot of podcast exclusives this month. So I hope you'll join me on YouTube and the podcast, especially for those exclusive episodes. I would love to hear from you guys, so please let me know your thoughts on today's episode or just your thoughts on the movie we talked about today in the comment section on YouTube or on Spotify. I got the Q&A, you guys. I've got polls, so check it all out. I want to know what you think, so let me know wherever you are listening or on Instagram at a.rocket.review, and I'll talk to you next week. But until the next episode, spread positivity, be safe, take care of yourself, and happy holidays. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.